Good morning and welcome to the Break with the Guy Who Sews. My name is Sean, and today I'm actually not live. I am not able to be live this morning. We are traveling, and I thought it'd be fun to bring on a new channel to me. It is John and Curtis from Guys Craft 2. I've discovered them fairly recently, and I reached out to them and asked them would they like to come on as a premiere and answer some questions so we get to know these guys a little bit better, because I've watched some of their videos. I think they're doing a lot of great things, and right now they just need more people to get to know them and get to know their channels. So once you finish watching this, head over to their channel. It's Guys Craft 2. I'll put the link in the description below, and go over and check it out. And if you like what you see, definitely hit that like button. Go and subscribe, comments. I mean, it's like everybody else. Like, we just love hearing from our audience. So please check them out. And if you like it, definitely support these two gentlemen, because they'll definitely appreciate it. So why don't you guys introduce yourselves? Tell us your names, where you're from, and approximately how long have you been quilting?
All right. So my name is John, and I am originally from Kentucky. So you'll hear some of that Southern come out as we go through some of the videos. But we started actually quilting just last August. So this month has actually kind of been our 1 year anniversary.
Oh, that is awesome.
Hi, and I'm Curtis. I'm originally from Pennsylvania. We live in Arizona now. I've been here for about 16 years. John's been here a little bit shorter period of time. So yeah.
Excellent. You're in the Phoenix area, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Have not made it to Arizona yet, but I would love to get out to that part of the country at some point. The only part of the desert I've really been to is Vegas. We stopped there on our way home from Australia for a couple of days, just because it was it was cheaper going that way than staying in San Francisco. So, but yeah, I'd love to make it out to Arizona one day. Plus, that's where they have spring training for baseball. I think it'd be fun to go out there and catch some of the spring training games. So, it's on my bucket list. We'll have to make that happen. But I always love hearing why people get started quilting. I mean, for me, I sort of quilted at the State Fair in Virginia, and I thought, let's give this a go. But what's your story? Why did you guys start quilting? What made you pick it up?
So it's interesting. Right before COVID, we started crafting and we started doing wreaths and different things. And last year, we moved out and went to a craft fair and found the coolest quilt. And it was a Christmas quilt. It was all done with gnomes. I love gnomes. And it was all Disney. And so we went to look at it, to purchase it. And the woman told me it was $350. And I was like, yeah, you've lost your mind. I'm not paying $350 for a quilt. So we went back home. I didn't sleep all night. We jumped up the next morning, went back to the craft fair, and the woman just laughed because we bought it. And so I told him, I guess around May of last year, that's crazy to spend $350 on quilts. We can just go buy a sewing machine and I can learn and save us a lot of money by just learning to do this ourselves. So
If only what you knew now back then.
we're a few machines in, a few fabrics in, and it just seems to keep growing.
And it will continue and continue and continue. But at the end of the day, as long as you have fun with it, that's it. I mean, we all have our hobbies, whether it's golf or whatever. Like it, So I mean, plus, fabric's pretty. So, I say go with that. So, whatever makes you happy. How did you guys learn? Did you go into a quilt store and take lessons? Did you go to YouTube, what I like to call YouTube University? Did you have a family member or a friend that taught you? How did you guys you went to the show and you got the sewing, well, you went somewhere and got a sewing machine. But yeah, how did you learn?
So I grew up with my mother sewing, so I understood like the preface, right? And
Okay.
so we decided to go into a fabric store. I was fortunate enough that I met a really kind lady who actually hooked us up with a couple of Bernina machines that were used, but gently used. They were only about 2 years old. And actually found a lady down at one of the local quilt shops that gave me about 3 lessons to get me started. Now, while we say we live in Phoenix, we live just outside of Phoenix in a community called Sun City West. So we actually live in a 55 plus retirement community. And
Oh,
so
wow.
we're very blessed because we have an amazing quilt club with about 150 women. And anytime we raise our hand, all 150 women have an opinion and ready to show us the next step on whatever we need to learn.
Oh, that's awesome. And I think that's great that, and it's something I mentioned on my lives and my videos that I just so appreciate those sort of resources because, you know, if you think about those 150 ladies that, how many years of experience do they have, you know, altogether? Like you probably talk, well, if it's 150 and they all have 5 years each, I mean, that's, you know, you could say thousands of years of experience quite happily and not even sneeze, you know. So, I mean, having that resource is fantastic. You know, I learned on YouTube at university. I've never, well, I took home ec in high school, but I didn't really learn anything there. And so, yeah, it's fantastic that you have that resource, you know, in front of you. So, I was going to ask you if you guys were part of a guild and later on in the interview, but you know, you've already answered that, but that's cool. Let's see. I'm getting distracted, but that's nothing unusual in my morning lives. Um, does anybody else, like you said, your mother taught you to sew? Does anybody else in your family quilt or sew or anything else like that?
No, actually, it's interesting. In my family, my mother was the only one that was really crafty. And I think in your family,
We had very minor sewing people in my family. I mean, they knew how to hem pants,
Okay.
basically, and that was, you know, the extent of their sewing skills.
Yeah, it's kind of similar for me. Like my mother had a sewing machine, which my sister now has, and I'm so thankful for that, that it stayed in the family after she passed. Um, one of my aunts made a bubble quilt for my sister when she was born, but I think, yeah, I'm probably the first quilter in the on my well, yeah, my side of the family, I guess, for several generations, if not longer. And you know, my sister quilts a little bit now too, which is really, really neat. So yeah, it seems like a lot of us don't have the family connection, especially the ones that have started. I found the ones that have started sewing more recently, like the COVID quilters, as I like to call them, you know, or post-COVID, even like in your situation.
Right.
So I mean, it's really fun to hear everybody's story. I'll ask everybody, so I have no problem with that. What is your favorite thing? Like, what is the thing about quilting that brings you the most joy?
well, of course, getting to the finished product, right? But I think it's the variety.
Mhm.
We went home and saw family for the 4th of July. And so we made patriotic totes to take home for my niece and my daughter. And so we gave them totes. But then, what, a month or 2 months before that, we were at the beach with the grandkids and we had just made panel quilts for both the grandkids. So when they came into the rental house, they always were sitting on the beds and the kids were real excited. So I think for us, it's more about the exploration. You know, we just learned how to do rope bowls. I just did some fabric bowls
did, yes.
before that we might use for like Halloween. We just made some Halloween trick or treat bags. So I think it's just the fact that there's just such this plethora of stuff out there.
Oh, for sure. There's so many different options out there. I mean, you've got your traditional piecing, you have your FPP, your EPP, all that sort of thing there. This was not on the list, but I'm curious. It's something my wife talks about a lot with the knitting community. They have what they call a process knitter or like a product knitter. Like, do you prefer the process of quilting something, or do you prefer just seeing the finished product? What would be more?
I think for me, it's more about the process because that's still so new and
Right.
it's trying to figure things out. You know, like our first quilts, we just did like a sandwich quilt and, you know, and birthed them and pulled them inside, you know, and just learning the binding and the different battings and the different. So I think for us, it's really the process right now.
Right, and the educational aspect and that sort of thing there. And I mean, I've been doing this close to 10 years, which, you know, for some people is like a drop in the ocean. And I am still learning stuff all the time. Like what I can do today, I couldn't do a couple of years ago. I think there was a couple of quilts that I did early last year that I'd started back in 2016, 2017, and I just did not have the piecing skills. There was a lot of half square triangles, and they were not matching up. I just put it to the side, and um, it's okay to do that because I came back to it last year and I was able to get it done quite happily because my piecing skills had improved. Now, some of those blocks were off by half an inch, and trying to get them all to matchy when you're putting the quilt together was a bit of a challenge, but I made it work, and it's a beautiful quilt. So yeah, I'm definitely all about the educational aspect of it.
Well, and I think it's one of the things I remember watching one of your videos. And, we tend to think of you as the expert, right? Because you've been doing this 10 years. We've only been, and you talked about your best friend as a seam ripper. And I'm like,
My
oh,
mate
right.
is sitting around here somewhere,
Yeah.
always close by.
So, it's nice to know that, you still, you have your, not struggles, but you have your challenges at times, just like any of us.
For sure, and I'm a big advocate for that. Like I'm not afraid to say, hey, look, I am not perfect. I think it's good for people to know that because I've heard quite a few people come, say to me in the past, like, I feel inadequate. I don't think I can do this because, they see people, including myself, make all these beautiful things and they hit a roadblock or two or three or four. Because sometimes, like, if you have a bad day, you have a bad day. Like, if I have to pull that jack for the same thing twice, I put the project away and either grab something else or I go take a nap. Usually it's a nap, and usually it does the world of good. So yes, sometimes you just need to walk away from it. But yes, I really do think unless you're perfect, which I'm not, doesn't matter how long you've been doing it, you're gonna have to rip once in a while. So don't let get definitely don't let that get you down. See, now I'm making mistakes, right? So, um, what is your space like? What sort of quilts do you like to make? Are you more a traditional piecer? Do you like the foundation paper piecing, English paper piecing, a bit of applique? What's your the one that you usually go towards?
So at this point, we're very traditional still. And so we're just getting into like the flying geese, doing the triangles, putting those. We have not done anything with paper piecing. We have bought a few appliques, but we still have those sitting in a basket. At some point, we'll get brave enough to, put the appliques on.
Yeah, an applique is one of those things that scares a lot of people. It really does. But I'm a big advocate for saying give it a go. I'm a fan of applique. I don't do it as often as I like to, but I find it's not as difficult as you might think. Once you get your stitch width and length kind of dialed in on your sewing machine, it goes together pretty quickly. And then the other thing I would say of applique that I would recommend is the piece that you're like putting on there, the applique piece itself. Put a bit of fusible interfacing on the back of it before you get started, and it'll stop it from kind of wrinkling and bunching up and doing all those sort of nasty things. I've put out a video in the past where I've shown off like all these applique blocks I've done, and I mean I kind of designed everything myself and just threw it together, and it turned out really, really well. So I mean, I think if you just get those few tips and tricks, it's not as difficult. And if you guys need help with that, you know where to find me. I'd be more than happy to help you with that. And maybe I need to do a tips and tricks of applique video soon. That might be, you might have just given me inspiration to do that. I just got to find time to do it, like everything else. I have this big list of stuff I want to do, and just not enough hours in a day. Okay, do you prefer to follow a pattern? Like when you do your quilts, are you someone that likes to buy a pattern and follow the pattern? Not necessarily 100%, or do you like to make up your own stuff or a bit of mix?
We're actually probably doing a bit of a mix. It's interesting. So the first lesson I took, I kept wanting to sew, and I remember the lady kept saying, "Oh, well, now it's time to iron. Now it's time to cut. Now it's time to iron. Now it's time." It's like at some point I do get to sew, right? It seems like sewing's a small piece, and some of the patterns are just so confusing, right? I mean, you're learning a whole new language, a whole new piecing. So what we've done is we've tried to follow some of the different patterns, And then we realize maybe a third of the way into it, we're not quite there. So then we finish it and make it a John and Curtis pattern at the as a final project.
And I think that's wonderful that you guys have figured that out, because to me, a pattern, and I think Becca's said this in the past and there's several others, and I've kind of adopted it as well. To me, a pattern is like a recipe. If you want to make it, if you want it to look exactly how it is, and you follow the pattern, as long as you've done what you were told, it'll turn out exactly as it is on the picture. But if you want to put your own spin on it, you want to change some things up, go for it. I mean, I've changed patterns up many, many times. There was, I think I was talking to my live about it last week, where I had a solar flare quilt, and the middle of it was supposed to be foundation paper piecing, and I kept looking at this thing going, why can't I traditionally piece it? And so I actually found a video where someone had done it traditionally. I'm like, oh, sweet, okay, I can do it that way. So, yeah, change it up. If you find a better way, or you want to substitute fabric, I've substituted fabric many, many times to give it my own spin. Yeah, make it yours. I think that's great, and I love that you're learning all this stuff already so new into your journey. Yeah, because it's just going to make it yours. It's going to make it unique and even more special. We talked a bit about this briefly earlier, about different crafts. What other crafts have you done, or do you do in addition to quilting? Because I'm assuming that's not the only craft that you currently do, correct?
Correct.
No, we do wreaths. We make centerpieces and wreaths, basic home decor items as well too. So it's fun. You know, we do a lot of craft shows. We have a couple of clients that are regular clients for us that, you know, they'll call us up and say, you know, I want, you know, with the big trend of being Barbie right now, we'll have people call us and say, you know, I'd like a Barbie wreath, you know, or something along those lines. And then we just create it, and we work with the customer every step of the way as well too, you know, with helping them to pick the right deco mesh, to embellishments, to signage, you know, so that they can be involved in the creative process as well too. And then we just kind of construct everything based on, you know, what they want and how they want it to be.
And that's perfect. And do you have like an online store or an online website or something that customers can go to?
We're on Etsy right now as Pride Proud Designs, and also for people that craft and want to make their own wreaths, we also have Wreathworks AZ as well too, and both stores are on Etsy.
Perfect. Okay, I'll have you guys send me the information. I'll make sure that goes in the description of the video, so that way if anyone's watching that would like to get more information about that, they can definitely do this, so without having to go searching for hours and hours, because yeah, sometimes it's not as easy as you might think.
Right.
Okay. Have you guys made a lot of quilts? I know you said you've been doing it for about a year. So have you now, and my interpretation of making a quilt is a little bit different to someone else. If you want to say, okay, a quilt top is a completed quilt, which I tend to do a lot because I have a lot of what we call flimsies. Have you guys made a lot? And if so, like, which one is your favorite so far?
So we've probably made about 22
Yeah, 22, 23
quilts total.
That's really neat for your first year. Now there is two of you, which makes it a little easier. But yeah, 22 in your first year. I mean, that's an achievement, you know, in my opinion. I think I might have made 2 or 3 in my first year. So yeah, you're hitting it out of the ballpark easily.
Well, and we cheat because we're very fortunate because we have a neighbor down the street that has a Bernina long arm. So we actually have a sit-down long arm that we'll do like the panels and maybe lap quilts twins on. But you know, we've done one queen size quilt, but we actually took it down the street and put it on that long arm. So you know, that made a big difference for us. But just learning how to cut all of that and put it together to get it on a long arm. And then she sent it home and I had to trim it. And then we still had to put the binding on, and it was like, well, that's as much work as she spent long arming. You know, it's so much involved.
Yeah, binding's one of those things that I think people tend to love or hate. I don't mind it because to me it's kind of like you're at the finish line. You can see the light at the end of the tunnel and that sort of thing there. I've only played with a long arm a couple of times at quilt shows. I've never loaded one or anything else like that, and they kind of intimidate me a little bit. but I wouldn't call it cheating. At least my opinion, I wouldn't call it cheating. You are making use of the resources available to you. Think of it that way. Like if you have access to a long arm down the street, go for it. I don't see any issue with that. So,
And like I said, we're very fortunate to be in the community we are. So
yes.
I quilt guild this morning, and one of the ladies come in and she said, "You're such a big Halloween person." She said, "Don't you love this bucket in the Better Homes and Gardens magazine?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, that's cool." She goes, "Well, in a couple of Saturdays, we're just going to get a bunch of us together and we'll all do one." And
Oh, that'd be
so it's really been fortunate for us to have that type of outlet.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's always good to have because not everybody has that, like there's a lot of quilters out there and a lot of viewers out there that kind of rely on the content creators and the rest of the quilting community to be their outlet and that sort of thing there. So the fact that you guys have this huge community, within walking distance or rock throwing distance even, it's just like you said, such a blessing. And I think a lot of us are a little jealous, but that's cool too. So, what projects are you currently working on? Do you have anything fun that you guys are working? Like I know you're talking about the Halloween thing that's coming up that you guys will probably do, but do you have anything fun that you are currently working on that you might share with us later on? Or
Go ahead, tell them about the Christmas one.
The black and white one. So very interesting. We're fortunate. We have 6 quilt stores within probably 5 miles. And one of our quilt stores just had a birthday party. And so we went in and they had this crazy black and silver and red
Yes.
Christmas tree on a panel with all these matching coordinating fabrics. So that's the one that we're working on right now to get that constructed. I would have never done black and silver and red for Christmas. It is not colors I would have thought to pick, but
right.
it's just so dynamic and so eye-catching that we've almost got the quilt top done. And it's just, we just look at it and go, wow, who's getting that, or where does it end up? Because it's so striking.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Like I want to see that like at some point. Is that something you plan on sharing on your channel when you're done? Like
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we will. Absolutely.
planning to before you need to now. So that's my request to you. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Your first quilt, do you want to tell us a little bit more about? I think you told us a little bit about it. It was the one that you flipped inside out. Do you still have that quilt?
So interesting enough, the first quilt I did was a 3-yard quilt. I had taken a lesson and actually worked with the lady who taught me how to do it. Ended up doing 2 of those, but we turned them inside out and did all of that. Those ended up going to the grandkids, interesting enough. So the grandkids ended up with both of those quilts. And what was funny is my daughter calls me and she goes, it's just strange how things work. She had been trying to get my grandson to give up his blanket because it was just getting old and ratty, and he was not having it. And she says, now, next thing, a Halloween quilt from grandfather shows up, and she goes, he takes and throws his away and goes, look, I've got a new one. She's like, you just kill me sometimes. But grab that one. Really, what I consider the first quilt that we did is this panel that we did, which actually had the first binding on it. And we still keep this and we hang it up for Halloween because it just meant a lot to us. So it's a cool panel.
That is fun.
See over here on the side, it's nowhere near straight as far as the binding itself. So when it hangs on the wall, it gives this really creepy, eerie effect. So some people, we just tell them we planned it that way because like real quilters couldn't get it as good as we did, going all the different directions. And we missed the corner when it came to putting the binding on, but we learned so much from doing this one quilt that this is really kind of what we consider our first quilt.
And that's one of the reasons I always ask this question in an interview, because I love hear your first quilt I think is something special because yes, there's mistakes, it's wonky, there's missing pieces on the binding. I mean, mine's no different. I actually I'll put a picture of it up so that way people can see it. But it was basically a 6 point, like a 6.5 inch square patchwork. I figured I'd start simple. I didn't have someone to teach me. I was learning on YouTube. I found a gentleman that taught you from start to finish how to make a patchwork quilt. And I thought, okay, yeah, let's not get too complicated, Sean. Let's just start simple. And that was really good. And originally I thought, okay, well, I'll make it double-sided. And that was not a good idea. So what I ended up doing is I ended up putting this like regular backing fabric on the first quilt, and it went down to my niece in South Carolina. But the other side of it, that was originally a bit of backing, I still keep with me. It's just a quilt top. I'll probably never quilt it, but I just sit there and look and go, okay, yeah, this is the beginning of my journey. And I think it's fun that you guys, yeah, but similar sort of thing, have the same sort of thing as well. So I really do think that's wonderful. And then finally, with this section, I broke it up in a couple of different sections. What have been some challenges that you guys have faced in your quilting journey? Have you had to pull out jack a lot? Have you found something that, like a quilt that you just weren't able to complete or needed assistance with? Have there been any challenges, or has it been kind of smooth sailing the whole way?
No, it's interesting. I just went to quilt camp 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And so there's about 40 of us that go, and they quilt from 8 to 8 for 2 days. And I did my first fence rail and quilt. And so as soon as I get it all the squares done, one of the ladies come over and she goes, "Do you not understand a 1/4 inch seam?" And I said, "Well, yeah, that's close." And she goes, "It's not even near close." She said, "You're like 1/8 of an inch." And when we laid the pieces out, didn't work the way it was supposed to work, because one side was going to be about 1.5 inches or so short when you turned it. And so we made it another John and Curtis quilt. So we redesigned the quilt and the fabrics with it, but it's one that we had bought that was all pre-cut pieces, and we thought it would be just good practice to, just not understanding the nuance about when you talk about a 1/4 inch seam, why that 1/4 inch is so important.
Oh, it is important. And I mean, I kind of got lucky with mine because I bought a quilt kit um quite some time ago, and like on the first page it kind of had it in bold print. You need to do a swatch and make sure your 1/4 inch is correct. And I'm like, if it's in bold, and if I'd printed it in color, probably would have been in red. If they're making it this prominent right at the beginning before I tell you even how to cut the fabric, this must be important. So it's like, okay, like I didn't want to, but I figured I really should. So I did, and I figured out where my 1/4 inch is, and it's been great ever since. And basically what I did on my brother machine that you see me piece with all the time, I marked it on there with Sharpie. So that way I know like where I put the dial, so I know my quarter, and it's pretty much spot on all the time. So yeah, if you don't use a 1/4 inch seam allowance or haven't figured out what your 1/4 inch is on your machine, yeah, do the swatch, take the time. It might take you 5-10 minutes to get it right now, but yeah, once you do, mark your machine or do whatever you have to do to make sure it's right. Because it's like you said, it's going to save you so much time and hassle and time with my best mate in the long run. So I'm glad you learned that lesson.
And again, I think that's kind of what our channel's been about, is just the journey, right? What we're experiencing, and it's okay. We figure things out, but it's when we look to you and look to different ones, it's like, wow, you all have got so much knowledge, and yet there's times that we use the seam ripper.
Oh, for sure. But I mean, I also started my channel 8 years in. Like I didn't start my channel at the beginning like you guys did. And I think it's encouraging to see people do it from the beginning, because you're going to be relatable to a lot of people that are just starting out that I can't. Because yeah, like you said, you look at me and I don't profess to be an expert, and I'm definitely not. But yeah, I do have a skill set just from years of practice that not everybody has. So yeah, keep showing those mistakes, keep showing those struggles. You'll encourage more people than I think you'll ever realize. But let's talk a bit more about your channel. That was going to be where I wanted to go to next. What motivated you guys to start a channel? What was kind of like the driving force behind it? Like, did you just wake up one morning and go, "Hey, let's start a YouTube channel," or was it something else?
I think it was more that we were learning a lot from YouTube. So, different channels we started connecting with and started watching. And, the advantage of YouTube, right, is I can find a lesson that I like and I can stop it, I can rewind it and do those things. But a lot of the channels that we were finding had so many folks had such experience in that. And it was like, well, maybe if we start our channel and start, relating to people that we're new, we're just starting on this journey. Come watch the silly things we do, see our mistakes, see what's happening. That we felt like that might just help encourage others.
And I think that's fantastic. I really, really do. Because yeah, I think you're gonna, like I was just mentioning a moment ago, like you're gonna speak to so many people in that way. So I think it's awesome that you guys decided to do that. And I basically started mine because I was watching the knitting podcast with my wife, and these people were getting stuff done. I'm like, okay, if I start a channel, maybe I'll get more stuff done. And it's actually worked. It's actually worked. Like I get a lot more done now than I used to, because I've got people looking to me, every Sunday morning to see what I've been up to. And I don't want to stand there and go, hello, I'm here. Thanks for joining. We'll see you next week if I've done something. So
Yep.
yeah, I absolutely love that. So what tips or advice would you have for anyone that would want to start a YouTube channel?
I would say just be the risk taker, right? Just whether you record it on your iPhone or how you do it, just be the risk taker. Be willing to step up. Be able to almost like expose yourself, right? And be able to kind of take that chance.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, I totally agree. I mean, I think hitting that record button the first time is the scariest thing you'll ever do, especially if you're introverted like myself. Um, and your first few videos may not be the best, but you like anything else, you start at the beginning, you learn, you make each one a little bit better, and you'll definitely grow with time. And the beautiful thing is our community, our viewers are so supportive, so understanding. Like they know that your first 2,000 videos are not going to be TV studio quality. So, and they just, yeah, they just support you, which is really, really neat. And I just love that, to love the community for that.
I do too. I think
Um,
what really surprised us is the community itself. I mean, some of the
mhm.
comments that we've received or just some of the emails that we get, just encouraging and sharing. And it was like, it's you hear everything else on the news and everything else is going on in the world, and it's just such a positive group and positive
Oh,
community on this side, and it's just really just such a nice welcome change.
oh, absolutely. And that was like an unexpected side effect for me. I was not expecting that. I mean, I just thought I'd give it a go and see what happens. And, but yeah, like that's definitely been such a, I mean, I have so many, quilty friends that a lot of them I may never get to meet in person, but, like I'm communicating with several people on a daily basis. It's other content creators, viewers, I always like to be reachable if you need be. But yeah, like, yeah, start off with your phone. I still record on my phone, and I have no intention of changing that. I mean, because for me, it's easy. I record on the phone, I edit on the phone, I upload. It's one device, and I'm done. I have the laptop for my live, so I can have two cameras. But other than that, yeah, I'm a one camera thing. So you don't need a lot of fancy equipment to get started. Now, it is a double-edged sword. You might get started, and if you like equipment, you like tech, you might be um going down a dangerous rabbit hole, a lot of money. But yeah, you can do it on the cheap, at least to get started. That's what I would suggest, is just start simply, get some decent lighting, get a little miniature tripod from Amazon for 10 or 12 bucks, and start on your phone and just see if it's something you enjoy. You might do it 3 or 4 times and go, this is the worst thing I've um ever done, and I don't want to do it anymore. And if it's not for you, that's great. But yeah, give it a go if you want to. If you have the desire to, give it a go and just see where it leads you. You just never know. I never thought I would be where I am today. Like if you told me I had 2,000 subscribers, I would have told you, you know, you need to check yourself into a into a hospital. So, what type of videos, like for anyone that's just coming into this and haven't heard about you guys, what sort of videos should they expect when they come onto your channel? What do you currently have, and do you have plans to produce different types of content?
We do. We want to do more general crafting. You know, a lot of things that we've done have been like shopping sprees and getting supplies in. We want to be able to do more where we kind of do sew and chat. And so, you know, people can watch us do a project and we can, you know, do some things from start to finish. We actually just got a bunch of supplies in for Halloween as far as floral designs.
Yeah.
So we'll actually be doing some demonstrations on how to put some simple flowers together in that, and you know, with your pumpkins and that, to make some really cool centerpieces and things for you know, for the upcoming holidays. And you know, a lot of stuff that we buy that we'll be demoing and that we get it from Temu. So it's not, you know, it's not a huge investment. We're trying to, you know, show people that it's not about spending a lot of money. You can go to Dollar Tree and find some really cool things and make a $10 arrangement that if you walk to Michael's, it's $90. And it's like, yeah, you don't need that. And so that's really kind of the direction we want to take the channel.
That sounds fun. Yeah, and I look forward to seeing what you guys come up with and just the creativity that you come up with. So these sew-on chats, are they giving? Are you planning on doing like lives? Is that kind of what your intention is?
It is. We feel so fortunate. Today we have 88 followers. That's not family, that's not friends. We've really not talked it up with our family or friends that we have a YouTube channel. So those are really just pure people that are finding our channel, that have tuned in. So we feel really fortunate about it. And because of that, I think that's helping motivate us to do more things, to get to a live eventually. But you know, we also know we need to find what that slot looks like and where we fit in. And you know, we need to have enough followers to even have at least one or two folks tune in when we do a live.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things like if you just become regular at it, like the first few times you might not get a whole lot of folks. Like I decided 12 months ago, okay, yeah, I'm going to do lives because people kept asking me for it. I'm like, okay, when's the best time slot? I was like come after work and try and do it on a weeknight. I'm mentally exhausted, so you're not going to get the best Sean. And everyone likes to sleep in, including the dogs, on a Saturday morning. So it's like, okay, let's do 8 a.m. Eastern on a Saturday morning, and let's just see what happens. Like, no one's got that time slot. Maybe there's a reason behind it. Like, maybe no one's going to get up and watch. And it's, yeah, people watch every week. I mean, I got a lot of replay viewers, but a lot of people tune in every Saturday. So yeah, find the time that works for you, and just keep at it, and your followers will come. I really do believe that. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but how do you feel, or what do you feel makes your channel unique? What is your niche or makes it different to other channels? Because I believe every channel is different in some way, and it's a good thing. Like, what makes you a little bit different to anybody else?
I think for me, from my perspective, it's just that we're so new to a lot of things that
Okay.
it's challenging ourselves and you know, being able to say, look, watch it as we put this together. Something as simple as the other day we did a steering wheel cover, and we did a YouTube around that. Got a lot of positive feedback, but it was like it turned out nothing like it was supposed to. It turned out completely opposite, you know. And then it's funny because my neighbors go, well, it's really cool. So I think it's really the fact that we're learning as we go through, and we're willing to show that almost like vulnerability, right? That it's okay, we'll figure this out. And you know, if you're one of those that kind of, you know, is willing to go down the path, and you know, we may say left and we end up getting to the stop and turning right, that's us. That's where we're going to be.
That's excellent. I love that. I think that's going to be a great little niche for you guys to continue down. So that's so much fun. And finally, one more thing about your channel before we move on to like some other cool stuff. What do you have any long-term goals, like looking a year ahead, 5 years ahead? I mean, now I really do sound like I'm interviewing you for a job. It's like, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
That's
So,
okay. I work in human resources, so I understand.
I didn't realize that before. So,
I think really for us, it's getting into our first quilt show. So the community that we live in, every even year has a quilt show that gets judged and all that. I think next year we'll end up entering the quilt show, but we'll do it as on a non-judging basis. So just the fact that we can enter a quilt, have the quilt there, it won't be judged, so we don't have to worry about whether or not we get a ribbon. But starting to just kind of get used to what that looks like.
Exposure.
Yeah, and then hopefully 2026 we'll have a quilt that we think's ready to be at that level and be judged.
yeah, I mean, with the judging thing, I would at least want you to consider maybe trying the judge section, because one of the things, and a lot of people that don't enter quilt shows don't realize, is that not only do you get you get scored obviously, and against everybody else, but you often get a report card back from the judge, and they'll tell you what you've done, like what you've done well and what areas you need to improve on. And I mean, I've entered stuff into the Virginia State Fair a couple of times, and sometimes those report cards are hard to read. Like you have to take it with a grain of salt. But I've learned so much from those report cards that's made me a better quilter.
Now, that's great
So
advice.
Yeah, that is
yeah,
good.
yeah, and then a lot of people I've talked to that have entered stuff into shows. That's one of the things they tell us, like, yeah, the ribbons are wonderful, and I love the ribbons for sure. I mean, you can see mine hanging up behind me. But yeah, a lot of people really get value out of those report cards. So see where you're at next year. But yeah, don't be scared to put it in the judge, and especially if you don't have the expectation of possibly not ribbing. Like don't disappoint yourselves. But yeah, that report card I think is wonderful information you can pull from. So yeah, just food for thought for that there for a week. So, and a lot of my friends that I've talked into putting quilts into shows have actually surprised themselves and actually gotten blue ribbons, white ribbons, red ribbons, best of shows. So yeah, you may just surprise yourself. Like my first time I put it in, I figured, okay, I might get a judge's, what is it, honorable mention or that sort of thing there. And I walked around the corner and found a third place ribbon on. I almost fell over. Like I was so shocked. I was like, there's so many mistakes on this thing. Like it's not even show worthy, but I just put it in just, because I had to bite the bullet. So, we'll see what happens. Let's talk more about now your sewing style, your preferences, and that sort of thing there. So, I've seen some of your hauls and that sort of thing there on your videos, and you also talked that you have the luxury of 6 quilt stores within 10 minutes, which is a good thing and a bad thing. Like I keep talking that my closest quilt shop, I think there's 2 Joann's like 30 minutes apart, like in either direction, and my closest quilt stores are anywhere between 35 and 45 minutes away, which is a pain if I have to go find something. But I'm also in that position where I really have to think about it. Do I want to drive 45 minutes there, spend whatever it is time there, and then come back? And then a lot of times I'm like, nah, I'm good. So where do you like? Do you like to buy a lot online? Do you like to go to the quilt shops that you have so convenient, or a bit of a mix?
We do a mix. We're fortunate. We have 2 stores just within our community, so they're like a mile from the house. So today is Key Fob weekend, which means they have special sales at the one store. So I had to come home and get Curtis so we could go just check out what they might be giving us that we could miss out on. And we ended up they had 100. They had wide backs on sale for 35% off.
Oh,
So
well,
we came home with 4 new fabrics and that kind of stuff. But sometimes it is more about what we need. Some, like the stores don't. We tend to work 6 months in advance, so we're almost finished with Halloween and Christmas, and then we'll start actually by October. We're doing spring and summer, So because we like to have stuff for Etsy and that, so we tend to work, and that doesn't always line up with stores where it does on some of the websites.
Absolutely. Do you guys like give lessons on how to be prepared like that? Because I think you could probably I could probably get you about 100 people already that would happily sign up for this lesson if you offered it.
I think we learned that with the wreaths.
Yeah.
In order to sell the wreaths and that, people were looking to buy Halloween in September, and we were thinking, well, you don't want it until October. So we started, it's just kind of been our mindset now.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I mean, I worked grocery for a year when I first came to the States, and I think it was like this time of year, the truck shows up and there's like 4 pallets of turkeys, and I'm like, I'm new to this country, but I thought Thanksgiving was in November. Like, they're like, here they are. So yeah, they start shipping them in August. So I was like, okay, so I get it. Let's talk about your least favorite part of the quilting process. What would that be?
I don't think I enjoy it.
For me, it's binding. I hate binding, and I have watched, I think, every YouTube video. I have finally figured out something that works for me. The binding comes out pretty cool at the end. I have to do it on my Bernina, and it takes 2 different feet to accomplish the binding. But it's funny, some of the women that I know, they're like, well, you want to learn to do hand binding. I'm like, look, I spent a lot of money on machines, so if a machine can't do it, but for me, it's binding.
You see, like my spirit, like I don't mind binding, but apparently, like from the research I've done, and that's very limited, binding seems to be one of those things that a lot of people don't like. I've actually found the method for me that works pretty well. Basically, I sew all the way around with the machine, and then I kind of just go over, like once I get about, I think like 4 inches from the end on each side, I kind of cross it over, overlap by 1/4 inch, sew across like a like a sort of like a mitered, and that sort of thing. There, make sure it snaps right, and that 9 times out of 10, it's just perfect. Because I originally learned how to do it where you kind of shoved it in, and it was supposed to work, and that drove me nuts. I could not get that to work, so I found that other one. But again, like you do what works for you. So, but yeah, you're definitely I think the majority of people dislike binding is one of the things they always say. Let's talk a bit more positive thing. What is your favorite part of the quilting process?
I think for me, it's actually picking the fabric. I'm very visual, so I'm very good with colors and textures and themes and schematics and different things like that. So I'm more of like kind of an analytical thinker. I'll see a specific fabric and I'll say, okay, this would look really good on this type of quilt, and then I'll just kind of design it in my head a little bit and get that idea down, and then we just work together to piece it out, and we come up with our quilts.
That's awesome. Yeah, and again, like I think that's something that I've found is the picking out the fabrics and that it tends to be one of the definitely one of the favorites. What about you, John? Which is your favorite part?
I think it's really I like getting the pieces all cut and then start seeing them come together. So he likes definitely the front end. I like it after you cut the fabric and you start to see if what we visualized, if it's actually, I think, going to work.
Yeah, I think I'm more like you, John. Like I definitely like the piecing part and seeing it all come together. I do like picking the fabric. I think that's a lot of fun, for sure. But yeah, if I had to pick a favorite, my least favorite is basting. Although I have kind of solved that problem inside my in my home, so that might not be as bad as I first thought it was. But yeah, that's always I love piecing, and then it's kind of I just sit the flimsy aside, and that's as far as it gets for quite some time. But I'm trying to fix that. We've talked. I was going to ask you about whether you did your own quilts or you send them out to a long arm. You just go down the street to your friends. So we can skip. Yeah, so we can skip that part. What are some of your favorite notions or tools that you've come across over the last year or so? Do you have like any go-to notions or tools that you would recommend that we should have?
Probably the one seam ripper that we bought that had a rounded into it, so you can actually take it and work it. I guess as you rip your threads out, the round
Yeah.
parts go back and help pull it. We had gotten that, I think, out of our Christmas box with Missouri Quilt, and that's probably
Okay.
the one tool that we tend to go to. It's funny, we've got probably 15 seam rippers around, but that one became more of our friend, just the way that it worked. But that was that probably is the biggest notion that we use.
Right.
Nice. Yeah, I always love hearing people's different notions because you get so many different ideas. Like, I know a lot of people, enjoy different rulers, and more people say seam rippers than you might think. I mean, I think for me, mine would have to be probably my steam press. I love my steam press, especially for my t-shirt quilts and that sort of thing there. So I love hearing all the different answers on that one. So do you have any quilting channels that you watch regularly? Do you that you might recommend?
There's probably about 4
Yeah.
that we tend to tune into more often. Your channel does happen to be one of those.
You?
So Becca always is a good channel for us. We do like Ian, so the his channel.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. And I watch the sewing channel. I can't think of her name now.
Tracy.
Yeah, and then we watch I See Stars Quilting, and so those 5, 6 tend to be in our top. So usually at night, if we're hitting a YouTube channel, the first thing we do is see if any of those 5 have posted something new or what they have, and even do searches, right? So like you talked about doing an applique a while back on your YouTube. When we get ready, that's what we tend to do, is go search those usually 5 or 6 channels to see if there's any examples out there for us to look at.
Yeah, and Tracy does a lot of tutorials. Like, she's fantastic for that. I mean, I watch Kristen from time to time. I don't know if you watched last year, but like all those channels you mentioned, bar me, were part of that 12 Days of Quiltmas.
Yep.
Yeah, and that was a lot of fun to watch. I didn't get to participate in that, unfortunately, but it was so much fun to watch, and it was kind of, in some ways, I'm grateful because it was kind of fun to kind of sit on the as on the outside and watch it as a viewer. So I think it would have been more, I wouldn't have got the same enjoyment out of it if I hadn't been able to do it that way. Is there any like obscure channels or new channels or anything else that you've seen? Because I mean, I'm always on the lookout for new channels to notice. Is there anyone that we may not know about that you would like to recommend?
No, not that I can think of.
I think partly just because we've been so new, and we've kind of synced into a few that really register with us. I know I found Dave's channel not too long ago.
He's a great guy. Yeah.
He's hilarious. And so we tended to watch him for like a few days just because he was new. So I think that's kind of part of our too, is that we're very
You like the familiarity of your favorites, basically. Yeah. I get that, But yeah, no, Dave's a great guy. I got the chance to collab with him a little bit last year he just comes up with the most wonderful projects. He's a great guy. I always love seeing what he comes up with, because it's so unique. Like, it's not like everybody else. What you see with him, you might never see anywhere else. So yeah, Dave's a fun guy. I really enjoy that. Do you have any favorite like designers or fabric lines that you prefer? Like, do you get drawn? Are you part of the Tula Pink movement or anything else like that, or you just kind of go and see what you like and just pick out what speaks to you that particular day?
It really has been what speaks to us that day. It's so funny because we'll go to quilt, down to the Quilt Guild, and we'll be down there with these women, and they're like, "Okay, so what did y'all buy this week?" And we're like, "Oh, we bought this," and they start naming, "Oh, well, that's so and so's line, and that's so and so, and I've got last year they did this," and I'm like, "Okay, well, let me go home and look on the fabric," because we do really just kind of walk through and see what.
We pick what we like, and then if there's a specific manufacturer name of the fabric, then we try to we make a note of that, and then we try to look for similar patterns or styles or colors even within that scheme. So we and you know, a lot of the things that we like, we find that a lot of other people like too. So you know, it works out. It works out.
Oh, for sure. And I'm the same way. I'll have to do a lot more research on this, but I wonder if it's more that the gentlemen just pick what they see, what they like, more so than the ladies. I mean, I could be totally wrong. I really don't know. It'd be interesting to hear because, yeah, I mean, right now the research is you, me, and that's it. So yeah, but
I would be curious because I know I've got some that say, "Well, I buy all the Moda or I buy Robert Kaufman every time," you know, and it's like, okay, well, yeah, I've got some of those too, but I don't know that.
I mean, there's certain lines like Norcott and Bernatech that I love for blenders, and that sort of thing there. But yeah, I mean, if I've got a particular project, I just go in there and I got an idea in my head of what I want, and if I can find it, great. So, but yeah, I might have to talk to some of the other gentlemen you know, coordinate with like Ian and Stephen and Russ and that sort of thing there, and just see if they're the same way. Because yeah, now I'm going to do some research on this. This will be an interesting little research project for me. We'll see what happens here. I was going to ask you about your sewing area. Like what we see, is that pretty much the entire area, or do you have more room? Like I know you probably share it with your reef making and other crafting stuff as well, but do you have the luxury of having a bigger space, or do you have a small one like I do?
We're fortunate. We just moved in this house about a year and a half ago. It had a very large utility room. It's what we call it. But it had a huge table. So when it comes to cutting fabrics and doing all that, we have an amazing space for that. Then we took over this last spare bedroom. And so it's a pretty good sized room because it actually holds one, two, three. It holds 5 sewing machines now, plus a serger, plus our HQ sit down long arm. And
Wow.
we made a big investment. So that $350 quilt was a lot cheaper had we just kept going to the craft shows.
Well, it is what it is, and as long as you're having fun at the end of the day, I mean, that's really all that matters, you know. So I wouldn't worry about that. Is there any techniques that you guys are interested in learning? Like, I know you've talked about that you are more traditional pieces, and you've talked a little bit more like about wanting to learn how to do applique. Is there anything else that you guys have maybe seen or that you would like to potentially learn how to do in the future? I mean, there's so many different types of quilting out there. I mean, there's art quilt, there's the foundation paper piecing and that sort of thing. Do you have interest in any of those, or are you just happy with what you're doing?
I think we're content and happy at the moment. At some point, I really would like to learn paper piecing just because I think it's a technique, right? And so I'd like to understand what that is. There's just, it's interesting. I made the comment to one of the ladies today. I'm like, I see, I'd be happy just to have the knowledge you have. And she goes, I don't have any knowledge. I've only done it 25 years and there's still a lot of that, but I see some of the art quilts that our guild does, and it's just amazing when you look at these art pieces. And I'm like, that would really be cool to see come to life, or even some of the Kimberbell stuff that comes out. So.
Yeah, I keep seeing these art quilts, and I'm like, one of these days. But I think that'd be one of those things where I would want to go get some, like a formal class, like go to a quilt show and go to a class and pay the money and let someone teach me how to do it properly. Because I think me trying to learn myself on YouTube, it's probably not going to turn out nearly as good. I'd rather just spend a couple of coins and just let someone show me like face to face. I think that'd be a lot of fun. But yeah, FPP's for I'm definitely a traditional piecer, but it's kind of nice having that knowledge in that toolbox, so that if I see a pattern, I can do it. But yeah, I don't think. Let's see. I think I've been quilting for 8 or 9 years before I even attempted it. So yeah, do what makes you happy, and but yeah, never say never. Basically, is what I would say. Um, we've talked about you have you're part of a quilt guild in this wonderful like quilting Nirvana apparently that you guys live in Sun City, Arizona. So um, I think that's great. Are you part of any online groups as well, or did 150 ladies keep you guys pretty busy?
They
We
keep us busy.
Yeah, they definitely keep us busy. We belong to the Arizona Quilt Guild, which is over in Mesa, so it's on the other side of Phoenix for us. So they have a show once a year. They have some online classes that they actually hire, bring in instructors to do different things, and so that's been good for us too to give, because you learn every time we either take a class or watch someone. There's a piece that we learn better from. It's like, okay, well, Sean does it this way. That's just so great. And then if we do it over this way, it gets us there. So I think it's kind of like that collaborative approach for us.
Sure. Yeah, and I'm always a big proponent of like if you want to learn how to do something, go watch 4 or 5 different methods because how it works for me may not work for you. Becca's method might work better for you, or Ian's or Tracy's. Like yeah, like if someone else can teach you better than I can for that particular thing, it's not going to hurt my feelings. Like I just want you to learn what you need to learn that particular day. Now, if it's mine, bonus, but it's not going to hurt my feelings if it is. So um, yeah, definitely not an issue there. When you guys sew, do you sew on silence? Do you like to have like music or a movie or YouTube videos on? Like what's normally your go-to on that?
I When I sew, I typically have YouTube on. We actually bought another television to put in the craft room for that reason, and just having the person talking in the background, just I don't know, it
It's nice.
distracts me or something. I
Yeah.
don't know how to say it, but because I'm not necessarily following the video sometimes, but it's enough to. I guess we feel like
You
we
feel
have somebody else
comfortable.
with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I hear that a lot. Like I get quite a few comments where people say, yeah, put your like your live replays on in the background. So like I think it's like one of those things where people say it this they have someone sewing with them, even though it's just someone on the video. So I totally get that, and I think that's more common than you might think. So okay, I think we're getting close to the end. I mean, we've been chatting for about an hour, which I think is really, really neat. Um, do you want to tell us about one of the silliest quilting mistakes you might have made?
Hmm.
Stand out to you, or
So you.
I think probably it's just you're trying to learn new techniques. So I love my serger. I want to use the serger more. And we bought a jelly roll and actually found a pattern about how you serge all these pieces together and that. It turned out to be the silliest, craziest looking thing. And it was like, if I started ironing this out, it's got more seams than it does. It's like, I don't know how I would ever quilt this top and get this, it was just, so it's now a UFO. So it's in the closet in a basket. At some point we have to figure out what to do with it.
yeah. And sometimes it's good to put it away and come back to it. I think I talked about that a little earlier. And then finally, one question I have, and you may not have an answer for this, and that's perfectly okay. But if you had the ability to create an invention or something like that for the quilting world that would make our lives easier, what would it be?
Oh, that's easy for me. It would be a
Okay,
binding foot
a binding for okay.
where I could just run the fabric in one side and it would just twist,
Gotcha.
turn, bind, and be done. What do you
I
think?
love that answer.
I would say maybe a long arm that you can just feed it through. You can push a couple of buttons and it'll just feed it through with no problem. You feed it through one side, it comes out the other side perfectly quilted with your design on it.
There you go. I love that answer too. Mine, mine would be something where you could just tell it what size you want cut, like custom things. I know there's like AccuQuilt out there where they have die cuts and everything else, but I like to do a lot of these intricate patterns, you know, with Art East and Elizabeth Hartman, and every piece is different. Like I would have to go out and buy 100 different dies that probably don't exist. So if they could design a machine where you just go on the computer and you told you want this, and this, and hit print, and then it just cuts it for you, that would be my dream come true. Apparently, it doesn't exist yet. If anyone out there knows how to do it, let me know when the machine's ready for purchase, and I'll happily buy it. So
Totally get that.
Yeah.
that is my pipe dream. If I could design it myself, I would, and I'd make millions. But unfortunately, I don't have that sort of know-how. I figure in this day and age, I mean, you should be able to get like some sort of laser to cut it, or I don't know, who knows. But someone smarter than me can figure that one out and then just sell it to me. But yeah, I mean, I think that's just about it for me. I want to thank you both for joining me this morning. I value both of you, you know, hanging out with me and answering all my crazy questions. And yeah, like I said earlier, because we have people popping in, you know, we start early, so not everybody hops in right at the beginning. But yeah, if you just popped in, this is John and Curtis from Guys Craft 2, and they have a fairly new channel. And yeah, definitely go check out their channel. I mean, they have a lot of fun videos and they have a lot of fun stuff coming up. And you guys are going to do more the other crafts you get into as well, in addition to quilting, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
So we'll be doing the wreaths and arrangements and different things.
Yeah, and I think that's great because I know a lot of us, you know, we all love quilting, otherwise we wouldn't be here. But we do have interest in doing some other stuff as well from time to time. So I think it'd be fun for us to, you know, duck over and check it out and, you know, see what you guys are up to. And yeah, they've got fun personalities. I think you really will enjoy their content. So definitely head over, check out the channel. If you like it, hit that subscribe button, and yeah, like, comment, and that sort of thing there, because it really does mean the absolute world to us. So today, I hope you'll have a great day. Happy sewing, and we will see you all the next time, unless you have anything else that you'd like to add before we go.
No, we
No,
really
thank
appreciate
you.
the time you
Yes.
took today, Sean.
Thank you very much.
No problem. All right, you'll have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Happy sewing.
Thank you.